So let's think then about employing staff. Before we start, if I could please ask you to just take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This will ensure that you can refer back to the video if you want to recap and find out other videos, and also to be notified of new content as soon as it becomes available. So on then to employing staff. It can be really daunting when you think about becoming an employer, the responsibility, all the things that you need to do. And whilst, of course, you should always ensure that you're employing staff for the right reasons, i.e. that they're going to have some positive impact in your business, either to perhaps to increase your sales or to help you with the administrative burden. It can also be really rewarding as you take a new person into your business and you teach them about your business and how you want them to operate, and then you see them become a fully fledged member of your business and an important part of the team. So before you actually set about recruiting your new member of staff, it's important to just take some time and to do some research to ensure that you attract the right person that will actually further the aims of your business and the objectives that you're actually looking at achieving from taking on this member of staff. So there's some things that you need to consider before you take on the person, or even to start to look at them. And in order that the staff member can have a positive impact within your business, firstly, you yourself need to understand exactly what that looks like. What do you want them to achieve? What do you want them to achieve on a financial basis? Do you want them to achieve a certain amount of sales? Do you want them to help you with the administrative burden? What will their day-to-day duties look like? What will you expect them to take on full responsibility for? What will you expect them to be supported whilst they're doing? And as you go through this process and you think, what does a day-to-day look like for them, then that will help you to determine some of the skills that you might expect them to have. And this will help you to develop a job description, and which will actually set out exactly what the person that you're looking for. And it's really important that you have that before you start looking for the person, because otherwise you don't know where you found the person that you're looking for. Of course, it's a fundamental thing to make sure that you can afford the member of staff before you start to recruit. And so, as we've looked at in other sections and other videos, it's really important that you have a good handle on your cash flow, that you have short and long-term cash flow projections. So you should refer back to them and adjust them for the staff member. So in that, I'm talking about both looking at the costs of the employment, making sure that you can afford the outlay each month or week, depending on how often you're paying them, but also that you factor in the impact you expect them to have on your business. So, for example, if you are expecting the person to be a salesperson and actually improve the turnover of your business, then you should factor all of those things in. Obviously, if they're to reduce the administrative burden on yourself, that might be so that you can focus on the sales, or just to ensure that you have a better work-life balance when things are just sort of too overwhelming and there's too much to do. So you really need to think about what the person will be doing within your business, and factoring into your cash flow any impact that will be had by the new person starting. Of course, even if you take on a salesperson and they have a certain level of sales or impact on your financial turnover that you expect, it will of course take them a little while to become fully trained. And so you should also factor that into your cash flow as well, and not expecting 100% for them right from the start, actually thinking about the timescales it's going to take and what timescales you expect to pass before they are at full capacity of the impact that you expect. You also need to make sure you're familiar with the employment law that's going to be relevant to the employment that you're going to be entering into. Now, there's so many different types of employment law. Some will be industry specific, but there will be some general employment laws that you will need to consider, whoever you are and whatever type of staff member you're employing. Things like through the recruitment process, right through to the contract starting, you'll need to be aware of things like equal opportunities laws, disability and discrimination laws, things like right to work in the UK and what checks that you need to make and what you might be liable for if you don't make those checks properly. Once you agree the pay with your employee, you need to be aware of the minimum pay levels and all the legislation that surrounds. And also, of course, how much holiday you need to give them, what statutory rights that they have. This can all be really daunting as a new employer, but if you're a member of either a trade or professional body, or maybe a more general organisation like the Federation of Small Businesses, then all of these types of people will be places that you can go to get in-depth support. Or perhaps if you have a bookkeeper or an accountant that helps you with your accounts, and they may be able to help you with the payroll, or you may look at engaging the services of a HR consultant, where you can just engage their services for just as and when you need them, or some operate a subscription basis where you can pay a monthly subscription. So it's really looking at what is appropriate for your needs as an employer, that fits in with your experience as an employer, your existing understanding of the legislation, just to make sure that you do get everything right and you don't unwittingly fall foul to some law or legislation. As soon as the employment starts, regardless of whether it's documented or not, a contract exists between you as the employer and your employee as the employee. Now you must, within 2 months, give a written statement to your new employee that documents the key terms that you've agreed, such as the hours, the pay, and that type of thing. In the absence of a documented contract of employment, and what we call statutory rights for your employee exist. So statutory is things like the minimum levels that are required. So the minimum levels of pay, the minimum amount of holiday they must be given. But it is actually really good practice to have a documented contract of employment that goes into much more detail than just the statutory rights. And by having that in place, it means that both you and your employee have something to refer to, any questions, rather than any awkward moments or misunderstandings, which can obviously create tension in the workplace. It means that you've got this document that you can both refer to ensure that you're both singing from the same hymn sheet, as it were. And to that end, it's a good idea that the contract is individually written specifically for your business, your needs and your employment. Because of course there are plenty of templates that you could use, and whilst these can be helpful, there can then end up a situation where you have clauses in your contract that are not relevant, or that no one really understands what they mean. So by having it written specifically to your business, it will ensure that it's exactly what is required. But regardless of where you draw on for this, it is really important as well that you understand every single clause within that contract. As an employer, you are legally required to have employer's liability insurance, that the current minimum levels of that are £5 million, and it must be from an authorised insurer. As well as this, then you should also consider any health and safety implications for your staff member, their working conditions, any assessments that you might need to carry out to ensure that they can work safely. And of course, we explore health and safety in more detail in another section. You will need to ensure that the pay that you agree with your employee meets the minimum rates of known as the minimum wage or the living wage. You'll also need to register with HMRC to let them know that you are an employer. They'll give you a PAYE reference number as well as an accounts office reference number, and you will also need to register with a pension regulator and consider whether you are going to need to auto-enroll for pensions, and that will be determined by how much you're paying your employees and how old they are as well. So again, you will need to make sure that you fully understand the implications and what you need to register for. So the pay rate that you agree with your employee and the amount that you're going to pay them, that's known as the gross pay. Every single time that you make a payment to them, whether it's on a weekly or a monthly, being the most common periods to pay from, then you will need to notify HMRC before you make the payment, and you will need to calculate how much tax, insurance and pension that you need to deduct, and you'll need to notify that to HMRC, known as real-time information, and that is basically to ensure that HMRC know the deductions on an ongoing basis. And then you will need to make whatever's left is known as the net pay, and that's the amount that you actually pay to your employee. And of course, they'll need to have a pay slip and calculate, showing the calculations of the deductions. And it can be helpful to have a payroll bureau, or if you have a bookkeeper or accountant, they may be able to help you with it. If you're not confident with what you're doing, at least initially, whilst you familiarise yourself with the responsibility of becoming an employer. Depending on how much you pay your employees, you may also need to pay employers' national insurance and employers' pension contributions, and then you will pay all of the deductions and your own contributions to HMRC and your pension provider on a monthly basis. So it's really important to keep on top of how much is owed, and also to have this information reflected in the accounts. This is something commonly that people forget about. They remember to put the net pay in the accounts, but they forget about the deductions and the impact that has, and also the account that has on the cash flow forecast for the business. One thing that I can't stress enough is how important it is to get your staff pay right. Fundamentally, it's going to be the primary reason that your employee works for you is because that they need that income. Of course, if you create the right environment, they will enjoy coming to work for you, and they will get other benefits from coming to work. But you know, ultimately, your employee will expect to be paid, and they will expect that pay to be right. And making errors with the pay that's not good for employee relations. So please, if you're not sure what you're doing, please do get some help with it to ensure that it is correct. It's good practice to have a probationary period of around about 3 months when you take on a new employee. This gives both of you the opportunity to see whether you're a good match, whether the employee does have the right skills and is able to meet the objectives in your business, and gives them as well the opportunity to see how you are as an employer and if you are what they are looking for. Throughout this 3 months and ongoing, really, you should have an induction program for your new employee. Gives them the opportunity to make sure that you teach them everything they need to know about the business, everything that's relevant, who they need to know about, who they need to be introduced to, what they need to be taught, and to be able to do their job on a day-to-day basis, to have an understanding of the responsibilities that come with their role. And of course, as well as at the end of the probationary period, on a regular basis, you should be reviewing your employees' progress, and also giving them the opportunity to ask questions and to give feedback about you as an employer, because that is also important, and that will help you grow as an employer and to become a better employer, and by listening to your employees' feedback. So managing these aspects of employment, right from recruiting the employee to the training to the reviewing the performance, that is known as human resources, or HR it's commonly known. It's very complex and there is a lot to it. So if you aren't sure, it can be advisable to outsource. But there's no legal reason why you can't oversee things yourself. But it's really important to undertake your research, because being such a complex area, there can be hugely negative consequences if you do make errors. So if you do go it alone, please do ensure that you go to reliable sources for your information, and also be aware of ACAS, which is an organisation that is there for employers and employees to give factual guidance. So that is a good place that you can go to if you're stuck on something or not sure about something, just to get the actual facts. And again, if you're a member of the Federation of Small Businesses or a industry specific organisation, then they should be able to provide you support. Or again, as we talked about before, your bookkeeper or accountant will be able to help you with the payroll, or a HR consultant may be right for your business. It's hard to say specifically which will be appropriate. You should just assess yourself, because everyone's level of experience will be different, everyone's time to do their own research, everyone's understanding. So you should do what's right for your business. So hopefully this helps and gives you more confidence to feel comfortable to take on new staff. And as I asked before, please do take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel to ensure that you can refer back to this video if you want to recap, to look at our other content, and to be notified of new content once it arises. And I hope this has been helpful, and thank you very much for watching. Thank you. Goodbye.